Good morning, everybody. How are you? So good to see everybody. Let me enable my chat here. One last button to press. Oh my gosh, so many buttons to press and things to get ready when I do these streams. But it's so good to see you guys. So happy to see all of you. What is it today? Is today Tuesday? You know, guys, right now I'm in that type of work period where one day just blends into the next, you know? I'm committed to spending as much time as possible as I can with all of you. So I'm here every day. I'm planning the streams, planning different content, planning different things that I want to push out to you guys and things like that. And, you know, but at the same time, I have to, you know, maintain my house and keep my dog happy and, you know, do my hair. My hair looks terrible today because I didn't use any product. I'm going to go get my hair cut later. So lots of things going on, very busy work period, but you guys are the best part of my day as far as being able to do this with you. So thank you so much for being here. Thanks for investing the time. And I know that I'm getting a lot of new users across, new viewers across all platforms. So really happy to see all of that new engagement and all of those new people. So for those of you that don't know, I'd like to run my streams in a particular way. I always like to start off with the global roll call. That's where I ask you to please introduce yourself with your city, state, country, city, state, province, country. Let us know where you're from. It's a really easy way for you to participate and be included in the conversation. So please go ahead and do that in the chat. No one's going to call on you. You know, no, you don't have to be some great data scientist to participate here. Just let us know where you're from. Just, you know, easy way to participate, right? And then also I like to give an opening note where I kind of share with you some of my general thoughts, you know, just kind of set the tone for us, you know, and if you want to comment on that, you can certainly do that, or maybe just something you want to think about for later. But that's how I like to run my chats, so on my live streams. So please go ahead, start filling up my chats with your city, state, province, country. And if you have questions, you know, about your career, about data science, about models, about whatever you want, right? I'm basically here for you guys. And you guys have been coming in really strong with the questions recently. So would love to keep that going, get some questions from you guys, and we'll see where the chat ends up. You know, sometimes we go for an hour, sometimes we go for longer. It's just, that's part of the fun, right? That's why you do these things live. So for today's opening note, I had a couple of different things to choose from, a couple of different things I was thinking about. On Mondays, I usually post a question, an open question on Instagram where people can ask me anything they want. And if it's a good question, I promise to give them a video reply. And I got some really, really good questions on this one, this week, I should say. And one of the questions I received was probably one of the more insightful questions that I've ever gotten. And they said, how do you know that maybe data science is not for you? Like, how do you know you've reached your limit when it comes to progressing in data science or choosing data science as a career? And I thought that was a really great question because personally, it's something I haven't really given a lot of thought about because, as you guys know, I'm very passionate about it. So for me, that type of question never really came into the equation, right? So that was something that kind of made me stop and think. And I realized two different answers that I could give to that person. One is that it's a very personal decision, right? So to some degree, maybe you shouldn't seek outside help because only you can really decide what the answer to that question is, right? It's good to get advice, get different perspectives, but ultimately you have to make that decision because it's ultimately about you and what you want to do in your career, your passions, your mastery, right? So to be frankly honest, to some degree, I feel uncomfortable commenting on that if somebody approaches me with that because you know, I almost kind of want somebody to determine that for themselves. And then the second thing I would tell people is one of the things that I have found useful in business is your gut instinct. Your gut instinct exists for a reason, right? And in business, it's usually a pretty good idea to follow your gut instinct. Now, obviously, your gut instinct will improve over time, right? As you get more experience, more situations, right? That kind of helps feed your own inner knowledge. But if there is something inside of you, something saying, geez, I really don't find this interesting. I really don't find this, that fulfilling, or whatever the case may be, then you should listen to that. You should listen to that. You should say, hey, maybe I'm not on the greatest path here. Maybe not the wrong path, but maybe it's not the greatest path. And something inside me, something in my heart, something in my mind is saying, maybe it's time to explore other things. And that's okay. If that's what your inner voice is telling you, then you should follow that, right? I think it's really important to follow those types of instincts, follow those types of feelings that you get. Now, keep in mind, when I say that, I'm limiting the scope to how you feel about your career and different situations, what your gut instinct tells you, what kind of makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up type of things, right? You shouldn't do that in modeling, right? Following your gut feelings in a data science process is not a good idea, right? So I want to make sure I make that clear distinction, right? Data science is not about gut instinct. It's about math and numbers, right? But when it comes to these types of things, like your personal decisions, your personal perspective on things, on your career, on your life, it's not a terrible idea to follow your gut instinct, right? So really, both of those items are to say that there are no outside markers that I could give to someone, right? Like I can't tell you, well, if you haven't mastered neural networks in 2 years, then you suck at data science. Like that doesn't exist, right? You're just learning at a different pace, and that's okay, right? So really, that's kind of why I'm focusing on those two answers, because there is no level or certification or test, like a quantitative result that I can give to somebody and say, oh yeah, data science is not for you. If you're learning at a different pace, if you're learning slower, I know a lot of you maybe, English isn't your native language and a lot of instructional materials in English or things along those lines, right? You're having challenges around that. Or maybe I've had people tell me, hey, I don't have a laptop to work on or okay, those are challenges, but they're not necessarily markers that data science aren't for you. They just might make you work at a little bit of a slower pace than others. And that's okay. If it's still inside of you, if you're still saying, hey, I really like data science, this is really something I want to do, then continue, right? Keep going, right? Just because you're going slow doesn't mean you're not going, right? So that, all of that's okay. But if your inner voice is really saying, hey, this isn't so great, then yeah, maybe it is time for you to follow that and do something else. To some degree, I've shared my story before. To some degree, that was the case with me, where, I've shared where I wasn't really happy doing software engineering, right? Now that I consider to be a little bit of a different situation, because I could have just stayed in software engineering and made 6 figures for the rest of my life. Like, I was making 6 figures, basically out of college, like a year after college or whatever. So that would have been an easy decision to say, yeah, whatever, my inner voice sucks and I'll just stay in software engineering. But I had those same feelings of like, well, it just isn't great work. Like, I'm not excited about it, right? And like I said, I felt like I accomplished everything I could in that world. But I mean, there was something calling me to go away from software engineering, even though I was already successful at it. Some of you, might be looking to go away from data science, even though you're still in the learning process. And that's okay, right? I'm only pointing that out to say it's not an exact parallel, but if your inner voice is telling you, hey, stop, it doesn't matter what stage you're at, right? Whether it's now or 5 years into your career, listen to it. There's a reason why that voice has been placed in your heart, you know? There's a reason why those feelings came up. Okay? So I hope that helps you guys. You know, again, it's just the way I like to start off my live streams. And if you want to comment on that, please do that. Or we can just talk about whatever else you guys want. I see my chat already filling up. Again, please let me know your city, state, province, country. Just introduce yourself. You know, easy way to participate. Easy way to us feel connected. So would love to hear from you. All right, so let me go back to the top. I know some people have introduced themselves. Casual Economist, our good friend, says, best way to start the day. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Now, for some people, it's the end of their day, right? I know for a lot of my followers in India and certainly in Asia and other places, this is the end of their day. Maybe even in some of my African followers. But yeah, best way to start the day, at least in the US, you know, and it's a good way to start my day with all of you guys. You know, I really look forward to this hour. Sometimes I have to rush to get all the streams and the promos and the this and the that. Oh my gosh, it's so much work just to get started here. I need a producer or something to help me with all the video stuff and all the promos. Yeah, but thank you so much for being our Casual Economist. Rex, our good friend Rex. Hi everyone, hope you're all having a good day. Rex, our moderator from New York City. Hope you're doing well out there, Rex. Leo, also one of our moderators on YouTube, says, good morning, folks. Good morning, Leo. Glad to see you here. Hope you're doing well. Manoj says, good morning, Dennis and all. Hope you're doing well. You are the best part of our day as well, Dennis. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you so much. You guys are a big part of my day, you know, especially now with so many followers and viewers. It's crazy, guys. I was just telling my moderators this morning how I get so many messages now, so many messages and comments, and I try to keep up with everything. I get a lot of vendors trying to sell me stuff. Hey, you know what? I know some of you vendors listen to this video, or you know, you watch my clips. Listen, vendors, I don't know what influencer is out there selling you the exact same cheap course, but all of you guys write me the exact same email, making the exact same promises. Be different, okay? And you know what, guys? I'll share a little something with you. I haven't told many people this. I'm getting so many comments now, or excuse me, offers for services, that I'm replying with a link where they can call me, but they have to pay to call me. I'm charging $50 to call me if they want to pitch me. And I do that because, like, every service out there, like, I'm getting like 20 vendors for the same service. SEO, I can create your thumbnails, I'm the best editor, I can create your graphics. Like, for each one of those categories you can think of, I got like 20 vendors in my inbox. So vendors, if you're listening, if you're serious about business, you can pay me $50 for half an hour and you can pitch me all you want. Sam here, tuning in from Bangkok, Thailand. Nice, very cool. You know, you might be our first viewer from Thailand. I don't think people have identified themselves being from Thailand. But welcome, Sam. Hope you're doing well out there in Bangkok. You know, when I think of Bangkok, I've never been there, but I think of a very dense city, like a very densely populated downtown. Like that's my vision of Bangkok. Is that what it's like? I mean, I've heard it's fairly, you know, obviously it's popular for a lot of expats, you know, from many countries to go there. But I just think of it as like a super dense, high traffic city. You know, I don't know if that's for me. I mean, I've been to New York, but I think Bangkok is like another level, right? I mean, I've heard that about Manila, right? Manila is also very dense, very spread out, right? The Manila area is a huge area. But that's my vision of Bangkok. Let me know how close I am in the chat there, Sam. Thanks so much. Is it Archita? I think it might be Archita. Archita, thanks for conducting these sessions, Dennis. I am an MS MBA graduate joining in from Seattle. Nice, welcome. Always good to get people from the West Coast. This is a very convenient time for most people on the West Coast. So thanks so much for joining us, Archita. Is it Dikesh? Hey, I'm just going to start my master's program in Germany. Welcome from Germany. And this is a transition from a QA role. Okay, cool. What would be some best practices I can do to become a really good data scientist? All right, Dikesh, let me come back to your question, okay? I want to get to the introductions first, because people are taking the time to introduce themselves. So I'll come back to your question, I promise. If I forget, let me know, okay? All right. Hey, Dennis, this is Raj here from India. Welcome, Raj. Just started out with DS in my career. I have trouble starting out with projects and using data science or math concepts I've learned. How do I go about it? Okay, let me come back to that. Archita, I'm going to come back to your question also, okay? Yassine, our good friend Yassine from Tangier, Morocco. Nice. Welcome, Yassine. Hope you're doing well. Yassine's such a great supporter. Really appreciate you being here, Yassine. I think you've been with me since I had less than maybe 500 followers. So thank you so much for that, Yassine. Randomize, introduce yourself. Let us know where you're from. Fatima, our good friend from Meekness. And that means we have 2 people from Morocco in the chat. Welcome, Fatima. Nice to see you. Fatima says, hey, sir. Hey to you too, Fatima. Hope you're doing well out there in your AI studies. All right. So again, if you're joining us late, feel free to introduce yourself. Please let us know your city, state, province, country. Just a really easy way to be included in the chat. Joseph, good morning, Dennis and everyone. I hope everyone's having a great Tuesday. Hello from Tennessee. We're doing really well, Joseph. I think Tuesday's off to a good start. We're gonna do this stream. I'm gonna go get my hair cut. That's why I have no product in it right now. So, I know you guys like the sunglass pictures on Instagram. I posted a picture in sunglasses and you guys gave me 100 likes on it. How crazy is that? So I might post a picture after I get all my nasty haircut. But yeah, off to a good Tuesday, Joseph. So Sam says, I would say Bangkok is pretty much a mix between modern and traditional buildings with huge local and foreign population. You should visit here when there is a chance. Yeah. You know what? The thing about Thailand, though, is it seems to me like I would have trouble just making a trip for Thailand. I have to make it a tour of Asia. I've always wanted to go to Singapore. I've always wanted to go to Hong Kong. Always wanted to visit Macau. So I'd have to do a tour of some kind. You know what I mean? I'd have to piece together an itinerary to do that. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little spoiled. So I've only flown business class for the last 10 years. So I'd have to find all the business connections all around. But yeah, maybe one day. I could see a Singapore, Thailand trip. I've always wanted to go to Singapore. That's still on my bucket list. I mean, I've been to Asia multiple times, but never to Singapore. Would love to go there. All right, let me go back to the questions. So Dikesh says, from Germany, coming in from a QA role. So Dikesh, let me know what kind of QA, because when somebody tells me QA, I usually assume that they have some Python, right? Because I know that QA uses a lot of scripting tools nowadays. Sometimes it's, oh my gosh, what's that? Oh my gosh, it's on the tip of my tongue. Selenium, right? I mean, QA uses Selenium, right? So I'm assuming you have some Python background with some tools like that, maybe? What would be some best practices I can do to become a really good data scientist? Don't focus on tools, focus on methodology. That's really the best advice I can give you, right? The best advice is focus on tools, focus on methodology, not necessarily tools. When I have the time, I'm really determined to write an ebook series on methodology. Because this is by far the #1 mistake I see people making in data science, and it's a massive mistake. Right? Python, Keras, neural networks, machine learning, blah, 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 blah. Those are all just tools. But methodology is how you learn how to use them. So if you're really serious about this, then being a really good data scientist is understanding how to use data science. Right? So that's where I would do. That's what I would do. Start from your business problems. Start from the theories or the hypotheses you can create from those business problems. And then go into exploring your data. What does the data tell you? And in a lot of cases, well, two things will happen. One, you'll most likely want to go into visualization because you want to see what your data told you, right? You want to share that with your stakeholders. You want your stakeholders to have a lot of access to that. And then that might cause you to go back to step 2 and revisit your potential hypotheses, right? What if your EDA shows something different? You got to be ready to move on that, right? New data has entered new information has entered the arena, right? All right, so now you got a hypothesis. How do you prove that out? Like, what are the ideation? What is in the ideation phase? What are the models, or what are the data-driven applications that you can do to help you solve those problems? And guess what? It's not always data science. You can solve a lot of things in this world with analytics, right? Analytics is very powerful. So maybe you have an analytics solution on your hands. That's possible. All right, so now you got your ideas. All right, so how do you solve those ideas? Well, we can look at these 10 different models, right? So now you're doing a champion model search, right? Okay, great. This is what the model tells me from a data science perspective. Okay, so you interpret those results. Okay, now what do those results mean for a business perspective, right? Now you gotta go into like a second interpretation phase. Okay, and so on and so on. You get the idea, right? Not once did I mention Python, did I mention pandas, did I mention neural networks? You know, whatever, right? It's about understanding what data science does. And then the tools just kind of help you fill in the gaps or do the tasks, right? But that's really what I would focus on. Like, what is data science? Not the tools of data science, but what is data science? So I hope that helps, Takesh. If you have questions, let me know in the chat, okay? Raj says, I have trouble starting out with projects and using the data science or math concepts I've learned. How do I go about it? So Raj, you should know, and everybody else should know, that I don't give ideas for projects on my channel. I think that if you really want to get started in data science, then you also need to work on your creativity skills. And part of your creativity skills is coming up with your own project ideas. So I do not give project ideas on my channel. And maybe the same advice would apply to you, data science or math concepts. Again, math is not data science. Math is a tool, a potential tool, a minor tool, I would say. You guys already know how I feel about math. You guys have seen my postings. It's a potential tool, but that's not data science. So you can't say, well, I took a tutorial on neural networks and I understand some of the math. Okay, I'm ready for a project. That's far from the case. That's level 0, right? The reason you can't come up with projects is because you don't understand the methodology. But when you do understand the methodology, the projects just kind of appear, right? Because what you ultimately should be doing is you should be reading, right? You should say, hey, I'm interested in the automobile industry. Okay, go out and read about the automobile industry. Okay, well, what legal challenges are they facing? What engineering challenges are they facing? What does customer satisfaction say about cars? And if you can do that, then you can kind of start coming up with questions and hypotheses and ideation and EDAs. But you don't know that because you're focusing on the tools, not the methodology, right? I hope that makes sense. But I mean, that's the reason why you can't come up with ideas, because you don't know like the process for it. But, you know, once you do, what I always recommend to people is start reading different articles, different studies. And then what in those studies do you think they fail to answer? When you finish an article, do you ever say like, oh man, I wish they would have also looked at this because that would have been an interesting study, or I wonder what that number is? Well, if you have that, then you have the start to a study, right? To something that you can research, right? But again, that won't really like jump out at you until you understand the methodology of data science. All right. So I hope that helps, Raj. So Archita asks, how do you go about scoping a data science project in terms of timelines and tasks? What are some generic guidelines? Do you have a good framework to follow? Good question. Good question, Archita. And this one is, the answer here is a lot more diplomatic than it is quantitative. The reality is that you want to set expectations with your stakeholders from the very beginning and set them to be very loose. Set them to be very loose. I tend to really shy away from making any promises up front. So yeah, Archie, this is a great question. There's so many different ways I can answer this. So I'll give you the answers that I would use like at different stages. So in the initial stages, I would say that I can't give any timelines until we're done with the exploratory data analysis, because we won't know what's possible until after we finish EDA. You, the stakeholder, might have, and again, this is me talking to them, right? So you, the stakeholder, might have ideas of what you think you want to do, but what if the EDA tells us something completely different? I want to keep an open timeline that allows us to have those types of exploration, right? So that's the first part. Don't make any promises until after EDA. After EDA, hopefully you've done your job enough and the stakeholder has participated enough where both of you guys, both teams, are excited about what's to come, right? You do your EDA, you do your ideation phase, and they're like, holy cow, that algorithm sounds great. That could change our business. We love it. Get to work. At that point, you can start putting a little bit of scope around it. But even then, keep it like, give yourself like at least a 2 to 3 week buffer, right? Like I can probably do this for you, and I think it's going to take 8 to 12 weeks. Right? That should give you enough of a cushion there. They're going to ask you why. Well, because to have a highly developed model, one, I'm going to need your feedback. So I'm going to be dependent on your feedback and your timelines for that. And two, we're going to be dependent on processing resources. More processors, more better for most models, right? Because in some cases, you can throw more hardware at a data science problem. Those hardware resources might take you time to acquire. And then inevitably that timeline will change, right? Pressures will be what they be and they will want something from you, and that's okay. But you should always walk into a deliverable meeting or, some sort of results meeting, right? Ready to say, here's where we're at, here's the results we have. But if you give me 3 more months and a few more GPU processors, I can get you to this. If you give me 6 more months, 10 more GPU processors, I can get you this, right? I mean, just as I say, every good study ends with next steps. Every presentation should also end with that. Here's where we're at now. Here's where I can take you if you give me more time and more resources, right? But that's what I would tell you, Archita. I could talk about this topic all day. There's a lot to it, right? But this is where good data science leadership is gonna help. And this is why I encourage all of you to look at, when you're interviewing, don't just take any job. Look at who's going to be leading you. Look at those people, because their strength is gonna lead to not just your success, but the success of the team, success of your algorithm, success of your deployment, so on and so on, right? Because what I just described has nothing to do with data science. This is all data science leadership and stakeholder management and, knowing how to work both teams through that process. That's not easy, right? That's something I specialize in. I love this stuff. But, you're going to need good leadership in order to guide you through that. All right? So hopefully that helps, Archita. If you have more questions on that, let me know, okay? Randomize, let us know where you're from, okay? Pankaj, hi sir, thanks for the sessions. This is Pankaj from India. Where are you from, sir? Who knows? Who knows? Life is full of mystery and wonder. I am everywhere and anywhere at the same time, Pankaj. Who can say? Abdullah, let us know where you're from, okay? We always ask people to introduce themselves. Dakesh says, I worked with JavaScript. Oof. Oh, no wonder you want to leave that. I'd want to leave that. I'd want to leave JavaScript and go work at a fast food restaurant. Oh, I'd rather do that than JavaScript. Yeah. Okay, Dakesh. If you worked with you work for JavaScript for QA? That's interesting. There's so many better tools than that, right? Like I know that a lot of RPA tools are used for that. I know Selenium is used for it. I think even Beautiful Soup is used for it. Like JavaScript seems like a weird choice, my friend. I've done some like QA-ish type of projects with Selenium, and that's super powerful. And so is Beautiful Soup. So I'm surprised they had you working in JavaScript. Ugh. I'll get me a job at McDonald's before I work JavaScript. I feel so dirty now. 9937 Robin, let us know where you're from, okay? We always ask people to introduce themselves. Dakesh says, yes, but I had worked with Python in college all 4 years, but I'm a bit rusty now. Okay. Well, brush up on the Python, but again, also learn the methodology, okay? Ganesh, let us know where you're from, okay? Rex says, what are your thoughts on Scrum and Agile? Yeah. Lots of room for that. Lots of room for that in data science. If you guys are not familiar with Scrum and Agile, I encourage you to do it, because, by the way, you might use it in data science, you might use it in software engineering, you might use it in a lot of things, right? Scrum and Agile are not exclusive to data science. They're not exclusive to any field, right? Agile was explicitly designed to be used in anything, right? There's plenty of other industries that use Agile, believe it or not. So Agile is a way to plan your projects. It's a way for you to plan your projects and measure and project what your team can do in a given time period. It's basically what good leaders and good project managers use in order to make sure that their projects are on track. That's in a nutshell. And I'm just giving you the very, very tip of the iceberg there, because there's been entire books, entire items written on Agile. So I encourage you to, read more about it. And, listen to your leadership when they tell you about Agile. But if you're just getting started with it and you want to kind of prep yourself for working in the real world, Agile, it has these work periods known as sprints. And generally speaking, you're going to find some differences, but generally speaking, companies work on 2-week sprints. And one of the core needs from your manager is going to need from you is they're going to need a pretty good estimate of what you can accomplish in 2 weeks. Right? Like you need to take a look at a piece of work and the different tasks and say, yeah, I can do this, and this task, and I can finish it in 2 weeks, I promise. That's very critical, right? Your manager is going to bank on that. So even if you don't understand Agile or Scrum right now, just in your work, in your personal study or whatever, try estimating what you can do in 2 weeks and then do it. Try it. And then at the end of those 2 weeks, grade yourself and say, yeah, I did everything I wanted to, or no, that didn't go so great. Right? Go ahead and do that. Start practicing that, because that will help you in most Agile and Scrum scenarios. All right. So, I mean, I don't want to get into, because I don't want to do it, an injustice. Although I have thought about some content around the same question, Rex. I'll share that with you guys later. But I am going to do some content around this. But, just for today, just to understand the basics, start grading yourself on how well you did on saying, I can do these things in the next 2 weeks. And then how did you do at the end of those 2 weeks? Did you finish? Did you not finish? What didn't you finish? And then just start the process all over again. That's the best way you can help your team in an Agile environment. Okay? Leo says, look for DevOps if you want to learn more from Agile production systems. Yeah, but that's not the only place, believe it or not. Agile is used in a lot of industries. Like if you look at auditing, there is something known as Agile auditing that has nothing to do with technology. Nothing to do with IT, DevOps, data science, nothing. So yes, you can look at that, but realize that Agile is used for anything. If you really want to get into the weeds on it, you can go back to the 70s. And you can find this online. It's freely available online. But Google at the Agile Manifesto. The Agile Manifesto is it's literally a document that I think it was like 7 founders or 6 founders came up with to write like what is Agile supposed to be. And if you look at the way they did it, there's not a lot of mentions of technologies in there. It's intended to be for anything that could possibly exist, for any project. So you're not off the mark there, Leo, but realize that it can be used for a lot of things. And it is used for a lot of things, right? I mean, you could argue that Agile and some implementations of Agile led to things like Kanban boards, right? And Kanban boards are used in manufacturing quite a bit. Or your support center is going to use like a Kanban ticketing type of system, right? Obviously the Kanban boards were made famous by Toyota back in what was that, like the late 70s, early 80s, I think, maybe even earlier than that, right? So they're used in a lot of things, not just DevOps. So like I said, Leo, you're not off the mark, but just keep in mind it can be used for a million different things. Yes, just saying because it's connected to tech production environments. Yeah, but it's connected to a lot of things. Like you'd be surprised where you find little pockets of Agile. It's quite amazing how much those people with the Agile Manifesto really thought it out. Bisma, let us know where you're from, okay? Archita says, thanks for answering, Dennis. You covered a good overall idea. I would love your detailed thoughts in a video format. I gotta go back and look at your question. Okay. Yeah, Archita. I definitely have more plans to do like more data science leadership content. Definitely want to do that. That's like near the top of my desires list. So maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do that sometime. Right now, guys, I'm really focused on this de-influencing data science series. I'm super passionate about that. There's so many idiot influencers out there that I don't like the way they cheapen my profession, and I hate that they are preying on good people like you, for your time and for your money. So I really, I'm trying to stay focused on that series to kind of bust those myths, because there's so many bad myths out there. So maybe once that series is over, but I got a ton of ideas for that series. My list on that is like 15, 16 ideas. And I think I've recorded 4 of them. So yeah, at some point, Archita, I'll do something around that. Yeah. Bisma says, I'm from Pakistan. Glad to be here. Okay, cool. Thank you, Bisma. Appreciate the introduction. Glad to have you here. Bisma says, Python for the win. Not a bad way to go. Not a bad way to go. Giving yourself deadlines is very important. It is important. It is important because, again, you know, not getting all really deep into Agile and all that other stuff. It's the best way you can help your manager and kind of your role in the whole Agile system, right? Like your estimation of your tasks and whether you finish those tasks kind of has like a downstream effect on everything else. So yeah, giving yourself those deadlines and then measuring yourself against those deadlines, because maybe you met it, maybe you didn't, right? You got to make sure that you also measure yourself against those deadlines. Very important. Bisma says, is it morning time for Dennis? It is. It is. It is 8 a.m. for me, or, you know, the 8 o'clock hour. Yeah. But yeah, that's the beauty of this, right? We have people from all over the world, and I love that. Zone Connect says, DS leadership, that will be epic. Fast forward that plan. There is a gap there to fill that. Yeah, I completely agree with you. And by the way, welcome back, Zone Connect. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Definitely a gap to fill there. I just got to find the time. But there's, I have so many ideas. I think this would make a good one. You know, because Archita is asking a good question, and I do have other DS leadership topics to talk about. Excuse me. Yeah, you know, maybe I will fast track it. Yeah. Like I said, guys, I got so many ideas. Like I keep a notebook of all my ideas. And just a ton of ideas. Zone Connect also says, hey Dennis, today's session is super helpful. Really love the answer you gave about projects. Please allow me to steal your answer because I get these questions a lot too. Well, make sure you credit me because, you know, I definitely don't like stealing other people's work, and I don't like my work to be stolen either. But really, it's not about the answer. It's about living the experience, right? You know, one of the reasons why I think, you know, people have joined and follow me, and, you know, I had the growth I have is because I'm speaking from a position of knowledge. You know, these are the things that I've done, right? I've run those types of meetings where you have to set those expectations and you know, the hand-to-hand combat with stakeholders, right? You know, I actually have one of my clips that's getting a lot of likes right now, where I told you guys, you know, not everybody loves data science. All right. I mean, if you think you're going to walk in and people are going to say, yay, the data science team is here. They're our saviors. They're going to help us. You're going to be surprised. Not everybody likes data science. Not everybody believes in algorithms. So, you know, like, yeah, I mean, if you credit me, feel free to use the answer, but realize that the power is not in the answer. The power is in living the experience, right? Like I've done plenty of hand-to-hand combat with stakeholders, right? Or like when my friend Laura Sell was on, you know, she talked about sometimes those meetings don't go well and sometimes you get beat up. And I totally get her. I've gotten beat up in meetings. I got my butt kicked in one of the meetings. Oh my God, they tore me apart. They tore me apart so bad that after the phone call, the project manager called me and said, "Are you okay?" All right. Like, you know, that's part of where me sharing with you guys is coming from, right? Like I've lived this, right? Like, so the power is not just in the answer, like, oh, let me use that answer. The power is in, hey, I've been there, right? I've been there and I hear you, right? And, or I've been there and I'm sharing from experience, right? Now that's really the power of the answer, right? But I mean, and like I said, I mean, the stakeholder management is like a whole other ball of wax, which by the way, is a chapter in my book. It's so important to me that I made it an entire chapter. Wait, is it a chapter or a section? No, it's a chapter. Yeah, it's a chapter in my book. Like that's how important I think it is. right? Like knowing how to handle your stakeholders, super important, super difficult sometimes too, right? But like, you heard it from my friend Laura Sell, right? She said sometimes you have those bad meetings, and like I hear it. I've been there. I've gotten beaten up, right? Or you have those meetings where you got to say, hey, you know what? Everyone's getting a little heated. Let's go ahead and shut down the call. Let's get out. Let's stop here. Or another thing, and I'll tell you another. I'll tell you another one. I'm giving you all my secrets here, guys. But another thing that I teach my teams, like the data scientists who work for me. So there's a saying in sales, right? And by the way, a lot of stuff you do in data science is sales. You may not realize it, but it's sales, right? But a lot of stuff you do in data science is sales. And there's a saying in sales, right? The saying is, when the client says yes, you shut up and you get out of the room. You got what you wanted. Why would you talk, right? You say thank you and walk out of the room. I teach that to my data scientists, the people that work for me. Because sometimes we need a yes. We need a yes from the stakeholders. We need a yes from somebody who's going to give us some GPUs. We need a yes from somebody who's going to give us some manpower to help us with human validation, whatever, right? So, like when we're in those meetings, and like I'm relying on my juniors to come up with data or whatever. Like that's my rule with them. As soon as they say yes, like don't you dare talk. Nobody talks. Just you're gonna hear me say, okay, great, thank you so much for meeting with us. Take care, and like that's it, right? But like that's part of the experience, right? You're only gonna learn that via experience and actually doing it, right? So just something for you guys to think about. So feel free to use the answer, but the power is in living it, in having that experience. Give me a second here to Rex. I'm sorry. I'm going to jump ahead here a little bit because I think Rex is asking a great question, and kind of staying in the same theme. How come people do not believe in data science? Is it lack of data literacy, or do they come up with valid concerns? Great question, Rex. It's a little bit of all of those, Rex. But there's another one. And it's the biggest one. And it's the most basic of human emotions. And it's fear. It's fear. Right? You're going to go in there and you're going to break some of their biases, right? Some of their processes. I mean, that's just part of it, right? And on top of that, they're going to say, well, why do you think we should do that? And you're going to give an answer, whatever, right? But to them, you're basically saying, because the math says so, right? That's essentially the answer you're giving them, right? I mean, you're coming up with different explanations and blah, blah, blah. But you're basically saying, because the math said so, because the algorithm said so. So if you're talking to somebody who's already kind of like has inherent fear, and on top of that, the data literacy that you're talking about there, Rex, a lack of data literacy, they're going to be like, get out of here. What are you talking about? Some math formula told you this. You crazy? You want me? I've been running. I mean, look, you're going to be talking to like you're going to be pitching your ideas to like directors or managing directors at companies, right? You really can't be a director unless you've been with a company, 10-ish years. A managing director at minimum is going to be with a company like 15 to 20 years minimum, right? So you're going to be talking to people who are going to tell you, I've been running my sales team for the last 17 years like this, and you want me to change it because of some algorithm? Are you crazy? Like, what are you going to reply to that? Like, seriously, like, what are you going to reply to that? Like, you as the data scientist. Right? But that's what they're going to tell you. I've been running my business like this. What do you mean you want me to change it? And that's inherently rooted in fear, right? Fear of, doing worse, fear of the algorithm. Fear of you, because they don't know you, right? You're the data scientist that joined 2 years ago. Who the heck are you? I've been here for 20 years, right? So like that's part of it, you know. It's a little bit of data literacy, a little bit of just ignorance, and a little bit of fear. So I think that's gonna be a lot of it, Rex. Where, you know, just because you're the new data scientist doesn't mean that they're gonna accept it. You know, and even if they are willing to accept it, they're gonna ask you for like extra documentation, like show me why it works, like walk me through it. And you can't walk them through it in a technical way. They're asking like at a high level way, right? Because, you know, ultimately they're business people, not technical people. So if you guys really want like a good view on this, you guys should already be familiar with the movie Moneyball. If you're a data scientist, you cannot know the movie Moneyball, right? It's the Brad Pitt movie from I guess it's about 10 years old now, at least 10 years old now. Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill in it, all right? So if you guys want to understand what I'm telling you, watch the last scene where Brad Pitt is talking to the owner of the Boston Red Sox. I love that scene, and I've used that scene in my meetings to help talk to people, right? But there's a great scene in there, or a great saying, where, you know, they're talking back and forth, and Brad Pitt's talking about how, you know, well, excuse me. First of all, if you don't know the movie Moneyball, it's about how, you know, baseball analytics was used for the Oakland A's, right? It was the first time ever, right? And they made some really unorthodox moves that everybody disagreed with, but it worked. It worked for them. And so the owner of the Boston Red Sox is bought into it, right? But Brad Pitt is saying how difficult it was, and, you know, people were angry, and, you know, he had to, you know, go through all these challenges. And the owner of the Boston Red Sox says, hey, the first person through the wall always gets bloody, right? And that's you. That's you as a data scientist, right? You're going to be breaking through that wall. You can't break through a solid brick wall and expect to come out clean. You're going to get beat up. You're going to get some blood on you. So that's all part of it, Rex. So you got to be willing to keep on going forward, and you got to be willing to accept, you know, I'm going to get beat up, you know. If I'm here to break new ground, well, you know, if you're going to break new ground, you're going to go through a couple brick walls. That's just the nature of it, right? Like, if you're not willing to do that, then you should really reconsider data science, right? Or at least like the leadership levels of data science, because maybe like at a low level you'll still get beat up at the low levels, but, you know, maybe, you know, not by, you know, not as bad. But like if you have trouble breaking through brick walls and getting bloody, then data science leadership is probably not for you. Because, you know, some of their concerns are going to be valid and some are not. Some are going to be just like, I don't believe you, get out of my office. What are you going to say then? Right? I mean, that's that kind of puts you in a weird spot, right? Like what do you reply to that? I mean, either you're ready to do hand-to-hand combat or you're not, right? So anyway, Rex, love the question. Let me go back. Let me see if I have any other questions. So Zone Connect says, so true. In my last contract, the senior devs threatened the owner they will quit if he decided to take on my advice. I won the contract, but I had to change the approach. Yeah, sure. I could see that. Other tech departments might also give you pushback. Absolutely. You know where I'm seeing this a lot now, guys? I recently did that long form video about AI won't replace me, right? And as you guys know, I'm very much a proponent of AI. I think it's going to be a huge part of our future, right? So I'm all about embracing it, right? I want ChatGPT to be my personal employee. This guy doesn't write code anymore. ChatGPT writes my code, and I take a meta view, right? It is shocking to me, the number of experts out there that don't see this happening, and a lot of them come from the software engineering world. Like when I spend time on Twitter and I follow, or Twitter recommends a couple of the software engineering influencers or whatever, and it is shocking to me how many of them refuse to believe that AI will replace them. So you're mentioning senior devs, and yeah, sometimes you run into software engineers that are very set in their ways, right? They're very set in their development patterns and their project management and all this other nonsense, right? They are unwilling to accept when new information enters the arena, right? Which is terrible, right? You should never live your life like that. Not just your tech life, but overall, right? So yeah, I mean, I could totally see that, where they would want to kind of lay down the law in that manner, right? Because not everybody accepts data science, guys. Not everybody believes in algorithms, right? Or just like the other day, I think it was Leo. Leo, was talking about how is AI going to master the reasoning and the understanding of features and things like that? Well, algorithms don't care. Algorithms don't care about features. They don't know what the column names are called. It's just numbers, right? And that's what the opponents of algorithms say, right? That there is a weakness, there is a fault in how oblivious algorithms are to the data, right? Like you can find papers on that, right? Where people say, well, data science can't be right because it doesn't know anything. It just looks at it as numbers, right? I mean, there is an argument to be made there. The arguments are being made there, right? So yeah, I mean, I could see how even from other IT departments or whatever, you would get pushback from otherwise reasonable people. And like I said, I see it a lot on these software engineering experts. Where they think that they can just keep on writing their same patterns, their same classes, their same OOP. That's dinosaurs. That's going to be overtaken in a blink. You could argue that it's already being overtaken. But yeah, thanks for sharing that, Zone Connect. I could totally see how that would happen. I mean, it's shocking to me how many people don't see the power yet in the LLMs. But guys, I think this is a good time for us to sign off. Thank you so much. I really like doing these streams because I never know what you guys are going to come up with. And I love the different questions. I love saying, hey, let's just see what direction we go in today, right? So thanks so much for bringing those questions. For bringing that variety. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I'm gonna go get my hair cut. Look at my hair, it looks terrible. I have no product in it. I'm gonna go get my hair cut. I'm gonna start working on some content, things like that. I got a lot of video replies to give today, but really appreciate you being here. Please, lots of crazy things going on across the world, so please take care of your families, take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time.